Welcome to Michigan Out of Doors. I'm Jenny Olson, and we've got an exciting show for you this week. We're going to head down to the southern part of the Mitten to Devil's Lake, where I was able to tag along for the day out on the ice with one of the USA World Ice Team members. We had a lot of fun, caught some monster panfish. You won't want to miss that. And Jimmy and the guys have been working on some fun stuff for us this week, too.
Well, that's right, Jenny. We do have a few more things on this week's show that we've been working on. We're excited for that pan fishing story from you. We're going to stay in the fishing world, and we're going to stop in with an angler here in the state of Michigan that not only makes his own lures, but we're going to show you what it looks like when you take him out on the Steelhead River. After that, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to sit down with a nature photographer, find out a little bit more about how he takes some of the pictures that he does. It might just be something that you and I can learn a little bit on how to take better outdoor photos. So lots of good stuff on this week's show. You stay tuned. I'm Jimmy Gretzinger, and it's time for Michigan Out of Doors.
From the first spring rains to the soft summer breeze, dancing on the pine forest floor, the autumn colors catch your eyes. Here come the crystal winter skies. It's Michigan, Michigan out of doors. Someday our children all will see this is their finest legacy, the wonder and the love of Michigan. As the wind comes whispering through the trees, the sweet smell of nature's in the air. From the Great Lakes to the quiet stream, shining like a sportsman's dream, it's a love of Michigan we all share.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by GreenStone Farm Credit Services, making recreational land ownership possible across Michigan and northeast Wisconsin. Begin your land financing journey at one of GreenStone's 37 locations or visit greenstonefcs.com. By Meyer, a destination for hunting, fishing, and camping. From bug spray and tents to GPS and gas, Meyer has nearly everything you need to take on nature and get you there. Meyer. By Showspan, producing consumer shows including Outdoorama February 26th through March 1st at Novi's Suburban Showplace. The show features tackle, trips, boats, outfitters, wildlife encounters, and of course Big Buck Night. That's Outdoorama in Novi February 26th through March 1st. By Country Smokehouse, offering a variety of meat products. Country Smokehouse is located 3 miles south of I-69 on M53 just south of Imlay City. Country Smokehouse is a meat processor, a butcher, and a destination for sportsmen.
Myron Gilbert.
What's going on this morning, Jenny?
How's it going down here?
Well, we're going to have a good day today here. We're off to one of my favorite lakes where I've done a lot of tournament fishing and haven't really been here this year, but I've been told we can probably find some. Typical situations on this lake, it's big water. We're going to probably stop a couple spots, and when we find them, we should do well. That's what I anticipate. But I anticipate catching red ears, which are really challenging here, and sunfish, and some crappies. And maybe even a walleye or pike can possibly show up here. We might not catch lots of fish here today, but they're going to be quality fish, which, you know, we're talking 10-inch, you know, maybe plus red ears, crappies, maybe up to 13 inches, which in Michigan is a good quality fish. And bluegills, you know, over 9 inches, some of them possibly here. But the pumpkin seeds are just beautiful here.
Yeah?
Yeah, very vivid colors, and I really enjoy fishing here.
It sounded like we were in for some fun on this cold, windy day. Joining Myron today were his son, Myron Jr., with his brand new puppy, Cody, and Myron's fellow charter boat captain and fishing buddy, John Gizchak. While Myron Jr. and Cody augured a bunch of holes, Myron and John got set up. So what'd you look for when you came out here? What would we look for? We have fished the lake numerous times, and we have areas where we've caught them in the past. And when we went on to this spot, we'd already checked 3 or 4 other spots. There'd been no fish. So this spot we pulled up, and there was fish here. So, but it's like a lot of big lake environments. They're not always at the same spots every time. You know, here it could happen today that we're not on them, and we might have to go to another spot. But that's real typical, and that was what makes the difficulty factor here much harder on a big water like this. Because just walking out, look how far we've went. We went a mile from the launch anyway. Yeah. Or pretty good distance. And yeah. So we'll see what happens here, but we have to be mobile too. It's like Great Lakes fishing on these big bodies of water. You can't fall in love with just a certain little spot, because it could be here today and gone tomorrow. Just like that, huh?
Well, not a keeper, but that's our first one.
All right.
Starting off with a bluegill here.
We're not skunked.
All right, but He goes back.
Back in. You are like in tournament mode. That's fast.
There we go.
Back down.
We'll see what happens here. A lot better fish here. There's what we're looking for. Look at that. There's what we're looking for.
Oh my goodness.
That's what we're looking for here.
Beautiful.
First good fish of the day. That's what we call a red ear here.
Oh, that's a red ear.
That's a red-eared sunfish here.
Oh.
See, usually they got a touch on the back, but that's a red ear.
Goodness, that's
They've
beautiful.
been planting them in these lakes and they're just beautiful. Look at that. Just shut the camera off. It takes a little while for these big ones to approach the bait. They're real cagey. They're real cagey.
All right.
You know, but I mean, when you can lip them with your thumb like that, them are keepers around here.
That's awesome. That is a big sunfish. That's crazy. I mean, that's a standard bucket right there. Wow. Well, Cody got all tuckered out with all the excitement, and while he was taking a nap, John and Myron Jr. were scoping out the water with an AquaView camera. When he's competing with the U.S. ice team, Myron can't use electronics, so today was different for him. But even on a day of fun fishing, there are some habits that die hard.
Oh, it makes me where I got a short leash where I don't set long in one spot anymore. I'm moving all the time, always trying different tactics, techniques, and the thing I have found that's the most important is just like real estate, you got to be on the fish. So I spend a large amount of my time getting where the fish are, because if they're not right there where you're at, you're not going to catch them. And we use all kinds of tools. We use electronics, we got cameras, and that's what we did today here. The first good hole, my son walked around with a camera, said, "Right here, Dad, there's a bunch of them right here." And we went and I started catching them immediately once I went over there. So staying very mobile is a real key to the success that we have, you know, very key. It's probably the #1 thing, just moving around. And don't be satisfied if you're not catching them. Stay moving. I'd rather stay moving. And then eventually you run onto them and things can be real good then. Oh. There we go.
Wowza, look at that
One of them real tricky ones that come up there and sniff the bait. And thought they were safe, but not quite. Another one of them great big red ears here.
Good job. Man, they're beautiful.
Gorgeous fish. Look at them babies on your hand.
Yeah. Devil's Lake is the place that Myron calls his training grounds. He's been fishing here most of his life and knows the lake very well. He told me before we came out today that we may not catch lots of fish, but we'd be catching some big ones. That was proving to be the case out here. Well, except for John anyway. In fact, it seemed to be just the opposite for him. That's great. You might be going hungry.
Yeah, there's not much meat on that one, but I'll put him back and let him get big and catch him next year.
Oh, that's awesome. You're having fun though, right?
Oh my gosh, I'm having a ball. It's about the 4th little one like that I've caught.
Yeah, I think
Where's my big
Myron's
ones?
setting you up in the...
I think he's got me set up.
It's heavily fished, you know, year round. It's a very difficult, clear body of water. Some days you don't get them, some days it can be extremely good. But by and large, it's very challenging, and a lot of people that come here get very discouraged. You know, we had a little Facebook post, and people were stunned that we're catching this grade of fish. They're not easy to catch here. It takes a little inside knowledge, and you got to get after them a little bit. But it was my training grounds, and I'll never forget this lake. Ooh. Oh, here we go.
Get him.
Oh,
Nice.
there we go.
All right.
Picking out a few here today.
Yeah, we're not smashing them, but there's been all big quality fish here. And we're starting to put a pretty good catch together. Between us here, we got another one.
The guys were picking away at the fish and had a nice pile of them scattered around the ice at all the different holes they'd been fishing. They were hoping to have a fish fry for lunch, and the next big red ear Myron hooked into was going to help add some big fillets to the pile. Whoa!
Oh,
Myron!
look at that red ear. That's about our best of the day right there, girl.
Look at that fish.
That's pushing a pound right there. For our natural lakes, that's a giant's where we live here. Well, each lake's different. This is a big predator-based lake here compared to like a small pond lake where you don't have a lot of the big predators and the pike in there. Them fish will act totally different. They don't hide in the weeds all the time. They just swim around because nothing's eating them. But in these environments where you have the big predator fish, these fish hide in the weeds. That's their safety, is in the weeds. They either have two ways of being safe in a lake. It's either going deep or they live in the weeds, just like animals do living in swamps, that same thing. And these fish will come out of these weeds to feed, but when they lay up, like when we went around with the camera looking, they'll just be laying in the weeds, just, you know, in a dormant stage, just laying there. Now and then they get active, they'll start swimming around and they're much easier to catch. It was just like we'd fished where we just caught a few and they hadn't been there earlier, but now all of a sudden they're moving around and we drop in and we catch some.
Well, Myron and the guys ended up with a pretty impressive catch for the morning. And on a cold, windy day like this, all it took was talk of a cozy restaurant and some fresh fried fish to convince everyone to call it a day. Being charter boat captains, Myron and John participate in Michigan's Catch and Cook program. The program started a few years back and allows captains and their clients to bring their freshly cleaned catch to a participating restaurant where it's cooked up right away. It's the perfect end to a great day.
That's part of the panfish trip right there.
Nothing beats from the lake to the fry pan.
You know what I got to say? That's right here in the Michigan Out of Doors.
Special thanks to Myron, John, Myron Jr., and Cody the puppy for making this a fun day out here on Devil's Lake.
Hi, I'm Jordan Brown, and for our next segment on this week's show, I was able to spend some time on the Grand River doing a little steelhead fishing with an angler who makes his own lures.
Doing is we're swinging plugs, and so basically what we're doing is we're slowly working down the river and moving the boat back and forth, you know, left to right across the river, and kind of letting the plugs sweep behind us. So we'll take the plugs over to the edge of the hole, let the plugs sweep in behind us, you know, kind of stop the boat and let them swing over behind us, and then take the boat over to the other side and then kind of let the plugs swing back over beside us. It's a really good technique. For whatever reason, steelhead really like that. It's really a good tactic for them. Fly fishermen use it all the time. They call it swinging flies. So we're doing exactly the same thing here, except with the crankbaits.
All of the crankbaits we were using today were handmade by Graham in a small workspace located in the basement of his home. He's been making lures for years, and the night before we hit the water, he was able to show me what all goes into making a crankbait.
We're down here in my basement right now. This is my lure shop. And I've been making crankbaits now for about 16 years. It's a really exciting, fun hobby of mine. It really complements my fishing. I've gotten to the point now where I like making the baits as much as I like fishing, and I really like to fish. So I got into this kind of on a whim. You know, I just thought one day it was winter time and I was kind of bored. I thought, well, I'll try to make a crankbait. So I tried it, and little failure at first, but soon found success, and got it to swim, you know, and that really got me more interested. And then I took it out fishing the first time, and the first time I took it out fishing, I actually hooked a fish on it, and so then that really got me excited about it. And from there, I just kind of just grew. You know, every week, every time I make a lure, I learn something more about this, and the more I learn about it, the more I learn that this is kind of limitless. You know, there's a reason there's thousands of crankbaits out there, because what happens is you really need a specific crankbait for a certain situation. And if you start making your own, you can really dial these things in and make exactly what you want to fish with for exactly where you fish.
Graham literally had hundreds upon hundreds of different lures hanging in his shop and was able to walk me through exactly what goes into building one.
So when I first started making these lures, I started making them out of wood. But over the years, I've kind of transitioned now, and now I make them out of a two-part urethane. So we still start by shaping and forming the lure as you would if we were making a wood lure, but we're going to cast a mold of that now and then build the lure out of two-part urethane. It makes it a lot more durable, and it's actually a lot easier to work with than wood. So we start out now by shaping the original master lure out of a wood, or in this case, I like to use balsa foam because it's easier to work with. So I cut the rough shape out. Once I get that rough shape cut out, I'm going to sand and smooth and really make that exactly the lure that I want to make, because once I get done making that master lure, everything else is going to be an exact copy of that one. All I do is anchor the bait inside of a piece of PVC tube and then fill it up with silicone. Let that dry. Once the silicone dries, we got our mold. And inside the mold, we just put the lip right into the mold, close that thing up, put it back into the original tube that we poured it in to kind of hold and secure the mold together. And from there, we're ready to pour the lure. We mix some stuff up here, urethane. We got 2-part urethane. When I get this stuff, this is a local company in Kalamazoo I get this from here in Michigan. And simply just pour it up, weigh this stuff out on a scale so we get equal amounts of each of these. Put some micro balloons in there, which allows buoyancy in the lure, so we get these things to float. So mix a little micro balloons with these 2 parts of urethane, mix it up in the cup, pour it into the mold.
It only takes about 10 minutes for one of these crankbaits to dry, and then they're ready to paint. From there, you can be just about as creative as you want to, as the options are about endless.
Making crankbaits is a lot like tying flies. You know, the fly fishermen have always had this experience where they go and they make their flies and they take them out and get to catch a fish on that. Well, you can do the same thing with crankbaits, and especially now the tools and the resources they have for this, it really makes it quite easy and pretty simple to do. So I would encourage people to try this, because it really makes fishing a much more authentic experience when you go out there with something that you've created, something that you've designed, put together, and you're fishing with this and you catch a fish on it. It's really quite an amazing experience that you wouldn't get if you're just buying something off the shelf and going fishing. You know, we all get excited when you catch that fish because you're doing everything right when that happens. Well, kind of adding the bait in that mix really makes it more authentic and really makes it quite an incredible experience.
Well, back on the river, we were able to put these crankbaits to the test, and despite some less than ideal weather and river conditions, we were still able to hook into a nice steelhead.
Got some energy. One of the big advantages of making your own crankbaits is that I can really customize these things to target specific species of fish, but also certain bodies of water. You know, certain bodies of water have their own characteristics. The quality control is not good, so you get a lot of variation in the things you make. And then what will happen is, in one of those variations, you'll find something about that lure. That thing just catches fish like crazy. And then over time, I'll look at that lure and finally figure out what I was doing with that lure, and then go from there. And then I'll start to incorporate that into my baits. That's how most of the advances happen. Well, we were fishing the dirty water. We were kind of giving up hope, but looks like our friend here cooperated a little bit. Hit the fire tiger. Nice male steelhead. Pretty excited making something up and then having a fish take it.
Well, we ended the day having landed only one fish. High water and wind made for some pretty tough fishing conditions, but there's no doubt that these crankbaits do work. Special thanks to Graham and his family for inviting me into their home and for letting me share in a day on the river here in Michigan's Out of Doors.
Well, here we are in the dead of winter here in the great state of Michigan, and there is some good pictures to take this time of the year. One thing about being a sportsman in the state of Michigan is throughout the year, there is all sorts of great outdoor wildlife photography to be had here in the state of Michigan. And many of you sportsmen out there also carry a camera with you in many of the places that you go around the state. What we're going to do right now is sit down with an outdoor photographer, find out some of his tricks of the trade, and it might just help you and me become a better outdoor photographer.
Back in September, I had the opportunity to spend an evening with Mid-Michigan wildlife photographer Kim LeBlanc. Kim has been perfecting his craft for many years and has come out of the field with many stunning photos of eagles, hawks, owls, grouse, deer, and many other wildlife that can be found here in Michigan. He has different techniques for each animal.
You see all the vegetation there. That will eventually be clothespin to this. Now for birds of prey, this won't work. Really? No. You got to be in a mirror, in a blind, totally concealed. I try to leave as much of the vegetation that's close alive. So all I'm doing now is bringing that back into the blind itself. We'll be able to go on the other side when I get it all set up. But that's all we're doing, is just trying to make it blend in. Because as you know, deer don't miss a trick.
On this evening, we were going to set up over a bean field to try to capture a photo of some nice bucks that were being seen here. Kim started his career using manual film cameras, as many of us did.
You know, it started in high school with one of those little Kodak Instamatics, you know, and I took a couple photos of a pheasant that when I took it in, got developed. You see that little dot? That's what it was a dot. You know, then trying to get deer again was, you know, a little dot. You know, at 30 yards it was a dot. And then my dad bought me a Pentax K1000. And, you know, just your typical 50mm lens. And so I was still trying to get wildlife photos with that little lens. And then the next lens I bought was a 200 f4. I just started slowly doing it and really getting into it. Of course, I always liked birds, so birds of prey were something I really specialized in. And then I moved up to a 400mm lens. And I got a permit in '90 to photograph on the refuge. So I was taking distant eagle shots, but they were using them for slide presentations. Then I started getting bands on these eagles, and nobody knew what to do with them. And so, you know, I got a list at home of the first ones we turned in. You know, well, this is a partial ID here, this is a blue band, and so they put me in contact with the people in Lansing, Fish and Wildlife Service, and that's how all the eagle stuff took off. And that's, I would rather do eagles than deer, but deer are right there. Because doing eagles is a much more commitment. When I get in a blind, especially for the project I'm working on with Michigan State and University of West Virginia, it's usually dark to dark. Because if you got an eagle sitting in the tree, you don't want the eagle to associate that little dwelling with the human. You know, we've got the bait out, we've got the trail cams, and they have no problem with the trail cams because we set them up at about 10 feet from the bait. So I figured I would specialize in something that requires a lot more time, which leaves a lot of people out of it. In a typical weekend, there'll be 30 hours in a blind, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Some days photo, some days not. I mean, just because they're sitting in the tree above you doesn't mean they're coming down on the ground.
Although eagles are Kim's passion, he spends countless hours in a blind photographing all sorts of wildlife. It's just another form of hunting, and one in which you have to hunt off the ground. We weren't seeing many deer on this evening, but it became very obvious to me it takes long hours of patience and dedication to come away with these beautiful photos. Kim not only has an eye for a great photo, but he also puts in the hard work to get them. Special thanks to Kim for sharing a little of how he tells a story, one amazing photograph at a time.
Thanks for joining us this week for Michigan Out of Doors. Make sure you check us out online when you get a chance. You can do it a couple of different ways. On our website at MichiganOutofDoorsTV.com or on our Facebook page at Michigan Out of Doors TV. We're on there every few days letting you know where we're at, where we're headed next. Speaking of where we're headed next, we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up for you over the next few weeks.
Well, that's right. There is a lot going on right now in the state of Michigan, and over the next few weeks we have a lot of brand new stories planned for you. Next week we're going to be up on Saginaw Bay chasing walleyes. We also have a walleye fishing story from Hamlin Lake over on the west side of Michigan. We're going to show you how to keep your kids out on the ice a little bit longer if you're trying to introduce them to ice fishing. There is just so much happening right now in the state of Michigan, and hopefully you're getting out there in the woods or on the water. And if we don't see you there, hopefully we'll see you right back here next week on your PBS station.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Pictured Rocks Boat Cruises of Munising, exploring Lake Superior's Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore with its sandstone cliffs, caves, waterfalls, and lighthouses. Pictured Rocks Boat Cruises on the web at picturedrocks.com. By Propane, exceptional energy. Propane retailers promote the safe use of Michigan-produced gas energy in homes, farms, and businesses across our great state. Learn more at usemichiganpropane.com. By Meijer, a destination for hunting, fishing, and camping. From bug spray and tents to GPS and gas, Meijer has nearly everything you need to take on nature and get you there. Meijer. Closed captioning is brought to you by Propane, exceptional energy. Propane retailers promote the safe use of Michigan-produced gas to outdoor enthusiasts across our great state.
When I wander far away, a dream stays with me night and day. It's the road that leads to my home state. I am a Michigan man. Changing seasons paint the scene like rainbow trout in a hidden stream. The white-tailed deer in the tall pine trees. I am a Michigan